Hey, what up, folks? And yes, we know everybody's great because we're great. Hey, folks, if you don't know Sam Thiara, you should. Sam, he's a motivational speaker, a coach. I've got my list here, so hold on. Speaker, storyteller, which I want to get into, a writer, an educator, and not only that, an entrepreneur. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well here in Vancouver, Canada, and I hope you guys are keeping well, and I hope that I can provide some insights to your audience.
He's a Canadian. He's going to be the nicest person in the whole world.
Exactly. This is going to be the nicest interview.
I love it.
We love our Canadians.
That's right.
We've had like, what, 5 or 6 Canadians?
We have, yeah.
So this is awesome. I love it. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get into your TEDx talk.
Yeah.
You know, my understanding is that it was in regards to motivating kids, or high school to college to corporate world. How did you come about that?
Sure. So I've been in the educational area teaching at university for the last almost 18 years now. But when I teach my class, it's not just about the theories and concepts. I think that that's knowledge, but knowledge can be quite limiting. What I've always said is, let's make it wisdom. How do you apply this to the real world? So TEDx came up and they said, Sam, would you like to do a session or speak? And I said, sure. And they said, okay, what would you like to talk about? And the benefit is I've had 2 TEDx's, and the first one I did was on personal storytelling. It was about how do we activate the story within an individual? How do we get them to discover the extraordinary out of the ordinary? And the second TEDx I did was how do we activate the voice within to be louder than the noise around you? There's enough people telling you what to do, but how do you activate that voice to realize not what are you going to do, but who are you?
Wow.
It's pretty deep.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if my mind knows how to go that deep. Whoa. I'm like,
so especially for a Monday morning.
Exactly.
So you finding, because you're really doing a lot of this through your students at the university. There's a lot going on in each kid, and a lot of times you don't know there's more. Do you find when they start to story tell in class, or they're turning in things to you, you find out a lot more about that person? Because you're teaching that in school as well, right?
Absolutely.
So how much are you pulling of what's hidden inside out in that storytelling?
Every day. And the idea is actually one of the most interesting exercises I do is probably, they've said, one of the most difficult exercises. And on the surface, it sounds very simple, very plain. What I do is in week 2, I make every single student in my class write a personal statement. In other words, if we met for the first time, how would you introduce yourself? But don't do it like a running resume. How would you introduce yourself to me? And it's interesting because they struggle with it. But then I say, okay, throughout the semester, we're going to revisit it at the end. And then we'll let you, do a redraft of it. And, tell me how you would change it and why you changed it. And I said, but here's the important part. Number 1, you'll always be able to change this personal statement. Number 2, always carry this with you as you move forward in life and career, because a lot of people have never done this. I mean, you meet people at an event. Oh, well, hey, Rob and Chris, well, what do you guys do? And then that's where we start the conversation.
Right.
Instead, I would say, Rob and Chris, who are you? So tell me, but help them and support how to answer who. You can't just make a blanket statement. Who are you? And then it's not students. I mentor and coach, young professionals to mid-level managers, even all the way up to senior managers, to get them to think about who they are and realize the significance of who they are. Yeah.
It brings up a thought. I remember I was working at a high school, and there was a girl, a very beautiful girl and stuff. And, people have an image of who she was. And we were in these really cool sessions, and she said, nobody really knows the true me. Nobody really knows me. And I actually said to her, how would you like to be approached
Mhm.
so that they can get to know you?
Mhm.
Is that part of something you teach as well?
Yeah, so what I teach is organizational behavior. In other words, how do we work, function, collaborate in industry, in the office, in the lab, anywhere? And it's also part of it is about, how do you interact and engage with each other? What I've always said is, we come up with our perceptions of an individual. And in fact, tomorrow I do an exercise where we talk about perceptions. And it's always one of my favorite lectures because I have images of different people. And I said, okay, tell me about this person, but it's just an image. And it's always fascinating what they come up with as words for this person. They're going by how they're dressed. They're going by, the image behind them, and they're trying to fill in this information. And then I show them how wrong they are about that person. And, even to simplify it even further, I do this really cool exercise in my class. I put an image up. And I say one word and only one word. And it's a picture of the ocean. And I said, okay, tell me one word that you would use to describe this. And they would use words like calm, deep, serene, dangerous, sushi, pirates, mermaids, etc., etc., etc. I have an extensive list. Then I say, okay, but which one's the right word? And then they look at me and they said, well, technically they're all right. And I said, no, there's one word. There's got to be one word, because in the management or corporate world, I have a view of how things should work, and I'm going to push that forward. And it's always interesting because I say, so you're telling me all of these words are correct? And they're like, well, yeah, it's based on this person's perception. How can something be calm and dangerous at the same time? It's like all of us are sitting there on a porch and we're looking outside, and I'm saying it's nighttime and raining, and you're like, are you kidding me? It's daylight and sunny. That's what happens with, perceptions. But then I said, the person who saw calm, serene, you can work with me because, yeah, that's what I see. Can't work with the person who saw dangerous. Can't work with the person who sees sushi, pirates, mermaids. But then I tell my students, or even when I do workshops for corporate level, but why do I need that person who sees sushi, pirates, and sand and waves? And why do I need the person who sees danger? And they're like, well, they're going to see things you're missing. They're going to see things from a much more narrow perspective as opposed to your broad thinking. And I said, exactly. So I want you to remember this exercise the next time you're holding a meeting, the next time you're in a group discussion and things, that instead of pushing your agenda, pushing your perspectives, why don't you realize the significance of other people's perspectives? And it goes back to what you just said about how would you like to be approached? That's the first part of opening that dialogue and discussion with that person.
So, wow, that is actually kind of interesting. And I ask a question. I usually ask it a little later on in interviews, but I think this might be a good time to ask it because I'm curious to know.
Sure.
So, I'm going to kind of give you kind of a little backstory in regards to it, and then I'll ask the question. Okay. So, coming from sports, we always say within the first step or first 6 inches or first foot, what's going to happen or how that play is going to go or what you're going to do. If it's going to be a negative or a positive. Because, you always want your first step to be a positive step. Now, in this aspect, what would you consider your first step?
I think the first step is having that open mind. Because I think if you go in with a preconceived idea, close your mind to thoughts and ideas, all of a sudden, the worst thing you'll do is, yeah, okay, I'm listening to you, but you're not. You're just hearing the person, but you come in with this preconceived idea. When I go into these conversations, I always say, don't just come in with these ideas and thoughts and preconceived aspects. Be open, and be open to also, an open mind. And it's always interesting. And if I may share a quick story about that understanding.
Yeah.
Well, so I've traveled to the Middle East numerous times, and I'm not from the region, but work took me there. And I remember the very first time I went to the Middle East, the amount of people who said, you're going to one of the most dangerous places in the world. And I was landing in Kuwait, which was right next to Iraq, when Iraq was going through major upheaval. And years earlier, Iraq had invaded Kuwait. So people said, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Have you not seen the news? Have you not seen how dangerous the place is? And I said, but I'm going. And I went and I came back. And people said, and it wasn't just Kuwait. I mean, I went to Bahrain, Doha. I went to, Jordan and, UAE, Oman, all of those places. And I remember coming back and people said, so how dangerous was it? I said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe how dangerous this place is. And they're like, really? Like, what did you experience? What did you see? I said, man, I tried to cross the road and it was so difficult. And they're like, what do you mean you tried to cross the road? And that's the hard part. I said, well, they don't have road safety there. And they're like, yeah, but what about what's on the news? The terrorism, the bombings, the kidnappings. I said, do you realize it's safer for me to walk around Bahrain at midnight than it is for me to walk around in so many places in North America? And it's not because I look like I fit in. Now, I will share with you that I did encounter one of the most dangerous occurrences in my life when I was in Bahrain. And what that was, I finished speaking at a conference. That was on a Thursday. And Saturday I'm leaving. And Friday there was a young woman. She's a organizer of the conference. She said, I'm going to pick you up on Friday and I'm going to take you and give you a tour of Bahrain. And I was like, no, that'd be great. I'd love to spend time with you and experience. So she comes with me on Friday morning. And as I walk to the car, she just comes out and she said, Sam, I'm so sorry, but our plans have changed. I can't take you around Bahrain today. And I said, oh, no, don't worry about it. I'll find my way and figure some stuff out. She goes, no. My mom says I have to bring you home for lunch. The dangerous thing is her mom's cooked all day. She's got a spoon, an empty plate in front of me, and all this food. Extremely dangerous because of the fact of the hospitality. Now that's how dangerous this place is. But you come in with preconceived ideas, you're never going to go.
Right. I think we're in a conversation about that right now, where somebody we interviewed who's also close to me started a school in Kenya. And I'm kind of afraid to go, to be honest. There's some turmoil sometimes there, and and he keeps saying it's okay, and so there's a safety issue. So, and the fact that you brought up that it's safe though, and then we also have our own preconceived notions of fear. What's kind of the first step you think that one would take to kind of handle that?
Number one, don't watch the news. That's one.
Right. True. On anything these days, right?
The other part is, talk to people. And that goes back to relationship building and conversations. Talk to people who have visited the place. Talk to people who are from there. And the beautiful part is, especially if it's people who, you come across who, are here, let's say from Kenya. And you're like, yeah, no, I've got a friend of mine. They want me to visit Kenya. Tell me about Kenya. What's it like? What are some of the things I should definitely be seeing? Are there places and things I shouldn't be going to? For example, think of it this way. I was in Washington, D.C. many years ago, but I was in Washington, D.C. I had no idea how dangerous D.C. can be in certain parts.
Yes.
Okay.
Very.
And I remember the concierge said, when you exit the hotel, go to the right, do not go to the left. And I was like, why? And it was just a street separating, one side to the other. But see, this is where the concierge or, somebody says, I had such an amazing experience in DC, and then a local who I know there said, yeah, no, you're on the cusp. You're right on that boundary. And he said, there's parts there that I will never drive. So I think it's more of educating yourself and, learning. There's this beautiful quote that I wrote in my book when I traveled to India. And I think it really captures the essence of what we're talking about here. The quote is, travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart, but that's okay. The journey changes you. It should change you. It leaves marks on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully you leave something good behind. And that was by Anthony Bourdain. I embrace that quote. I live by that.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
For sharing that.
definitely. That hits home in a lot of different ways, not just travel, but just in many different ways. Especially being an admirer of what Anthony Bourdain went through and just his life struggles, period. And him trying to open up everybody's facet in life.
Yes. And how raw and authentic he was. You know, and he wanted to show us. And what it reminded me is the fact that there's a difference between a traveler and a tourist. And there's nothing wrong with being a tourist. That's not how I like to travel. I'm a traveler. A tourist just wants to stay at a very nice hotel, taken by bus. You know, here, you know, if you look to your left, you'll see this. You've got 30 minutes in this stop and et cetera, and then back on the bus and you're back in your hotel. And, you know, it's all sort of guided. Whereas a traveler, no, I want to experience. And as a traveler, my best friend and I, we slept on the Great Wall of China overnight in a tent. I mean, we've been in the pyramids of Egypt. We've seen the lava flows being 3 feet away from in Hawaii. And I've just had so many amazing experiences, but it's experiences and people that have become part of this journey for me. But being a traveler is me.
That's amazing. And I definitely have had that in me for a long time, and then it's gone away, and I'm hoping to go back to that. So
I know.
That's where you're kind of inspiring me to have that feeling of going and adventuring and doing things that most people don't. You know, I love to go and say, hey, I've stood on Antarctica. That would be cool, right? You know, not many people can say that. Or go on a ghost thing overnight, which I don't want to do, but so that's really inspirational on how you're sharing with that. What else you got, bud? Because he's got some really cool things besides sport and education and stuff like that. Let me ask you this, because things just pop into my head sometimes.
Sure.
Both of us.
When you go and teach a class, what is probably your most important thing you want the kids to get out of it?
Right. Okay. So it's always interesting because I love reading the evaluations, and actually I don't like reading the evaluations. So you'll get 1 or 2 out of 90 students that, you know, they get a D in the class and it's my fault, not theirs. And, you know, they're going to make a comment. But the part that I really like, though, is sometimes the students are like, it's not even what you taught us in class based on the concepts and ideas. That was okay. Like, that was good. Every lecture I start out with a quote. And I add the purpose behind it. So in other words, for example, I believe tomorrow's quote is about obstacles. It's like, obstacles are the necessary bricks on your road to success. And then I tell them that you can't fear these obstacles. We worry about these obstacles and we fear them, but you have to embrace them because the obstacles are where your lessons are going to come from. You can't go through life without obstacles. So don't fear them, embrace them and learn from them. And so that's an example of how I would start my class. And then I give them a career tip. You know, for example, you come to that fork in the road. What are you going to do? Because so many times people are paralyzed with fear. And then what I try to do in the lecture. So for example, last week's lecture was on ethics and values. This week's lecture is going to be on perspectives. So I always say the biggest lesson I want you to learn from today and everything that I throw in here is respect and be open-minded to other people's perspectives. Last week, when it came to ethics, I said the lesson I want you to pull from everything I'm going to share with you, the stories and examples and the theories, all of this is it's very easy to sit there and judge somebody who may be acting unethical, but it's deeper and it's much more complicated. Ethics is more than right or wrong, good or bad. It's like, let's understand why that person acted unethically, because there may be a situational factor that actually caused them to act unethically that we may not be aware of. So before we judge, let's be open-minded. So this is what I like to teach in my class is, you know, I could stand there and just say, okay, here are the 4 ethical principles and the 3 concepts. But I always find, how do you apply it? And the other part is I throw in so many stories, and the stories are really what resonate with the students, because oftentimes, you know, that's the application piece, and that's what they appreciate.
Yeah. You never know what somebody's going through.
Mhm.
They'll never really show that on the outside, but there's
True.
a lot going on inside of there for people, whether they
Mhm.
look like they're happy or not. There could be
Mhm.
stuff going on.
Yeah. Well,
uh,
and if I might add, one of the concepts I've come up with that I share in my class, in workshops, and in seminars, one-on-one. I mean, the pandemic's hit every single person in this world, every single person. And I came up with this concept because for me, it was more, everything for me is internalized. I said, okay, but how are we going to move forward? And I came up with this idea that there's a need for us to care. And what CARE stands for is collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy. Those are 4 words that I think are so critical in our, whether it's an individual, like you said, a student or an employee, your team, your organization, educational institution, and nonprofits. Collaboration is all this idea of we all have something to contribute. We all have something to share. Let's be more open and share with each other. Adaptability is we've all had to shift and change, and so many people are resistant to change, but we were forced to change. Let's adopt this adaptability mindset and see, because adaptability is where magic happens, where you see things from a different process, a different way. Resilience is this idea that we're in a marathon. This is not over next week, next month, next year. Like, this is a marathon. So build this resilience and know that as a marathoner, you're going to have some difficult uphill times, but then there's also flat plains where you're in a better mindset.
Right.
And empathy, care, compassion. Let's show more empathy towards each other. And it goes to what you just said. You don't know what people are going through. So let's be more considerate and empathetic towards each other. So let's show more care, collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy.
Who has been and why your biggest influence?
Actually, it's been, and I don't mean this from a cocky standpoint, but it's been me. And the reason for that is, yeah, and the reason for it is I've had to maneuver and find my own pathway. And, the moment I stopped thinking about what I was doing and focused on who am I, clarity started to emerge. My father obviously has impacted me positively as well, like, life lessons and things. There are certain people that I would say have also added influence that support the person who you see before you. Nelson Mandela, for his perseverance amidst the most challenging of times. Anthony Bourdain, for his authenticity of opening the world to people. I mean, those are people that have influenced, and sadly, Sidney Poitier just recently passed away. And my favorite of all time actors, and how he took stereotypes and how he actually was cutting edge during a time that was very challenging. And those are influences, and I look at those individuals that I've said, and there are others, and it's almost like you pull a little piece out of them, you pull a little piece here. You don't want to be them, but you want to be able to incorporate what's really great about them into your life, and support. It's made me who I am today.
Nice. Well, Sam, I gotta say thank you. I mean, I feel like
great.
I feel like I've learned so much today just in the short time that we have spent with you. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if somebody wanted to get in contact with you or go through what would we do? What would we give them to put down below so they could check you out?
Yep, there's a few things. So you can visit my website. So it's www.sam-thiara, T as in Tom, HIARA.com. I've got about 180 blog posts with insights and things I've written about that. It's all free. You can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. And if you go to YouTube, there's a number of YouTube videos. You just type my name in the search engine and then you'll come to videos. But there's a lot of these insights, and I share pretty much everywhere. And I've always said that I've been given so much as experiences, people I meet, situations I've encountered with the whole soul perspective. I'm not allowed to hold on to it. I give it away. I share with people. And the idea is the more I share, the more it keeps coming back to me. And it's an amazing place to be where you have all of this that you can then share with people.
Yeah. And I want to end this show
Mhm.
differently than we have ever done before.
Mhm.
Okay.
I want you to tell me what you pulled out of this, and I want to share what I got out of
Man,
this. Just give me one thing, and I'll start to what you can
there's
think.
so much.
Okay,
God.
so I'm going to start with how much growth is in going through rough things. Like it can be hard, but that's where the growth really is in life. I really pulled that out. I think this is the type of show that we need to share that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, go for it.
I think for me, it's about being able to learn from others and
Mhm.
kind of try and peel a little more to learn more
Mhm.
from them instead of just taking what we see at face value.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was
Oh.
amazing, and I really appreciated you coming on the show today.
Oh no, thank you both for having me. And I leave you with my favorite quote. My favorite quote is, everyone's life is an autobiography. Make yours worth living. You are all living stories, something that needs to be shared, and never hide in your feeling insignificant. Everybody has something to share. So live your autobiography.
I love it.
I like
Thank
it.
you so much. What up?
What up,
Awesome,
folks?
Sam. You guys out got to check out. We're going to go watch his TEDs and his
Yes,
YouTube.
TED
and
Talk.
Absolutely. Thank you so
And we'll put
much.
that link below, folks.
Thank you so much. We will come back around with you again in the future. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Sam.
Look forward.